Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to be covering pools, volumes, directories, getting connected to iManager today to actually manage our servers, but really working with trying to a place for storage devices. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than you're probably used to with working with Windows. When you just have partitions that you're working with and disks. So I'm going to try to take you through this very, very slowly and repetitively to try to show you exactly, all the different components of storage. Like I said, we work with actual disk drives, obviously, and then we do work with partitions as well. After that, though, it gets a little bit different. Just like other operating systems, especially Unix and Linux based, we work with volumes and pools. And different operating systems will call them different things, but you'll be able to see it actually working on here. Before we get started with anything, I definitely want to go over some kind of maintenance stuff with your servers. So before you even start your servers, which I'm sure some of you have started already, which is very proactive of you, I applaud you for that. It's actually working with snapshots and backups. How many of you worked with snapshots before? How many have not worked with snapshots before? Okay, we're going to go over snapshots then. I'm launching VMware Workstation, and it does take a minute for it to launch. The new version 9 has come out. We haven't got an academic key for that yet. The main advantages of the 9 version apparently is to work with Windows 8, so that's the timing for there is. Okay, when I'm working with the virtual machines, I can open up the virtual machine first of all, and I'll go to Open. Actually, before I even do that, the default screen is something like this, where you have this sidebar with libraries. It shows you what your recent virtual machines have been. As you add new ones, they kind of show up there. I typically don't like working with those because I'm adding and deleting virtual machines all the time, and this list gets very, very lengthy, and it's not always current. So it's still going to be there after I delete the directory. If you do want to work with this, you can organize them, do different things with them. If you're trying to get rid of them, all you have to do is right click on them and you say remove. Now it even tells you removing OES from the library will not delete the virtual machine from the disk. It just removes it from this list. So if that is getting cluttered and it's outdated and just not accurate, you can do that. The OES virtual machine is still there, so nothing's gone. It's just that you're not able to quick link to it. I also don't necessarily care for this because it just takes up real estate. It's fine for right now, but when I work with other virtual machines, like having this extra space, why lose that? So I'll typically close it by clicking the X up here, so it gives you more space. Now when I go to my Open, I'm going to open my Open Enterprise Server virtual machine. I keep all mine on my data drive, and then I just happen to organize them this way. You can organize them any way that you want. Since I have a lot of data on here, I put all my virtual machines in one folder. I do have automatic backups for my laptop, some to the internet and some to a local hard drive. Virtual machines being so large and constantly changing, I do not back up to the internet. And so just this folder is not backed up, everything else is. And this is just backed up to a local drive whenever I plug in a USB drive. That's why I organize it that way. Doing it by classes makes perfect sense. Having a Novell class, Linux class, Windows Server class, data assurance class, or whatever certainly makes perfect sense. And that's kind of what I end up doing underneath the virtual machine folder. So I do have a Novell folder. I have several installations of Open Enterprise Server. And so I have different servers to work with. Eventually it gets a little crowded and each one's taken up, well, how big are these? Pretty small, only about 2 gigs. So it's nothing substantial, but it is extra space I can get rid of if not using them. Okay, opening up my virtual machine though. I'm going to start working with snapshots. Snapshots are best done prior to running your virtual machine. You can take snapshots while they're running, but you end up having some limitations with them of what you can do with the snapshot itself. A snapshot is an image of a specific date and time of a certain state. It's kind of like doing a system restore point, except system restore points only work with registry information. It doesn't work with your data or other things that you're working with, which is a good thing, so you're not going to lose data that you're working with. On the bad side is it doesn't restore it to a complete state. We're going to do it with a complete state of things that we're working with. Everything is as of that moment. So right now we just installed Open Enterprise Server and we've installed VMware Tools, and that's pretty much where we're at, right? Good. Okay. To work with snapshots, I go to VM and then go to snapshots. And it's simply as taking a snapshot, or I can work with the snapshot manager. Now I already took an image, a base image, because I've been working with this. But if I want to take a snapshot, it's taking it right here, right now. And I can call it whatever I want. I can call it, like the one I did call it, it's a base image. I can make it very descriptive. Initial install, IP address of 192.168.230.10. What else did I do with it? I had an admin account, and the password is LTC, and I installed VMware Tools. And now it has a snapshot. It took it as of that moment with that information. Now that description doesn't make any difference, or even the name, you can call it anything you want, snapshot 1, snapshot 2. It's just for you to go back to it. Another way of doing it is if you're going to be doing an activity. Like today, we're working with volumes or working with data. So you can even call something like pre-data. Then you go ahead and implement what you want to implement. And then, boy, I want to go back to this. I want to go back to that certain spot. All you do is revert that snapshot. To search how this works, I'm going to pretend that I started up my virtual machine right now, and the server's running, and I did, my partitions, my disk drives, my partitions, my pools, my volumes, my directories, and all that kind of stuff that I'm working with. And now I'm done with all that stuff. And now I shut down my virtual machine again. So I come to this state. And I can take another snapshot of this then. Take another snapshot, and I'll call it post volumes. Created data and home volumes. And that's, I didn't, but just sort of go with me here. And so now I have those two places in history. And I can go to either one. Even if I revert back to the original one, I can always go forward to the volumes one now. What it sort of looks like, if I go to VM and go to snapshot and snapshot manager, is it shows you all the different snapshots in time and then where you are right now. Say that, you know what, that volume activity was a lot of fun. I want to do it again, but I don't want to lose what I have. Okay, so let's go back to this spot right before I did the volumes, and I want to go to that place. It says by restoring the snapshot, your current state will be lost. So if you did anything after this volume one, anything over here is going to be lost. Well, we didn't do anything since then because we just took that snapshot. So I say, yes, I want to go there. And so now I have no more volumes. Okay, so now I boot up my server, I go through my volumes, I create a bunch more volumes, a little bit more practice, a couple different ones. I call it volume 1 and volume 2 this time because of practice. I shut down my virtual machine and I take another snapshot. And I'm going to call it post volumes, and created volume 1 and volume 2 this time. If I look at my snapshot manager now, it branches off. So this is still the base image, or the ones before the volumes that I created, but now I have this one. If I click on it, it says, oh, I created data and home volumes, And this one tells me I created volume 1 and volume 2. It also tells you the date and time you did this. So, oh, I did this at 8:26. I did this at 8:24. Oh, I definitely want the previous one. And all I have to do is just go back to that spot. And even though I created volume 1 and volume 2, I go to the first one and it tells me that I'm here now. And so if I start at my server right now, it's going to have a volume, I'm sorry, it's going to have a data and a home volume as opposed to volume 1 and volume 2. And you can go forward and backwards and forward and backwards and up and down this tree. And even if I want to go back to the base image again, and this time I didn't even want to do anything with volumes. I decided to create users. And then I shut down the virtual machine. I take another snapshot, post users, created new users, and I could have details in there whenever I want. It's just going to keep branching in there. The snapshot manager is able to do a lot of different things. Also, who's familiar with cloning a machine in VMware? Okay, what cloning is taking a specific machine and just making a copy of it. It'd be almost the same as taking that folder and just copying to another location. You have two virtual machines at this point. Cloning is a little bit better in some regards because when you clone it, you get to rename it to something else. You get to have some definitions of it, of what you're going to be working with, you know, configuration information. And so cloning is really nice. The important part about bringing down your server and snapshotting it while it's down is because if it's down, I can clone it at any of these points. So if I just want a base image server again, I can go to the base image and I can clone it. I could clone, it tells me which new directory I want to put this in, what configuration, what do I want to call it, and it's going to make it just of there. If I have the complete server built with users and volumes and that kind of stuff, if I have a snapshot of it, I can clone it as of that point to make a new machine there. So it's a lot of versatility from there. Like I said, you can do snapshots while it's running. It just gets a little goofy sometimes because the system time gets a little messed up sometimes. And these are servers. And if you're taking a server and just sort of jumping in time and space, they're just really not designed for that. So if you take the extra 2 minutes and shut it down, take the snapshot, then start it back up again, yeah, it's going to take an extra, 5 minutes total to bring it down, snapshot, and bring it back up. But certainly worthwhile. It's much, much cleaner when you're working with it. You can get rid of ones. This volume 1 and volume 2 was purely a, practice thing. I just wanted to do it again. I'm never going to use this one. And so I can delete that one. And so that means I won't ever be able to get back to it. So that volume 1 and volume 2 is gone forever. So all I have is my data and home volume option or my users. Now you can't combine these, like I can't take these, oh, I want to take my users and put them after I create my volume. These are purely snapshots. You can't, it'd be impossible to do something like that. So make sure that you are keeping track of what you're doing. If also you're creating users and you say, hey, what are my volumes? Oh, I started in the wrong spot. I really needed to be here after I created my volumes to create my users. So that's simple. You go to that spot, start up your server, and then go in and create your users that you want to create, and then take another snapshot. Take a look at your snapshot manager, and you can see, oh yeah, here's my volumes, here's my users, and here's where I am. This was, that was wrong, or it just was as a practice again. I really don't need that. I can delete this, and it goes back to a straight line. Any questions on snapshots? Any? You good on this? Okay, it does. You can ask questions. This isn't like a, a closed session by any means. I hope that you're not feeling that way. Like no one's talking or saying anything. Is everybody intimidated or something, or scared, tired? Not even a response to that. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going then. Um, let's see, it does take up disk space. If I go ahead and take a look at my data drive and then take a look at virtual machines and then Novell, and this is the one I'm working with, you can see the different snapshots that are here. Nothing's really changed in them, so they are really tiny. If there were real changes, which in real life there would be changes, they could be substantial. So, what was, originally, like 2 gigs, can increase. Well, it's still only 2 gigs because there's really no changes. Those snapshots just keep track of what the changes are. So again, even booting the machine, putting the volume information on there, it's going to add a little bit more, a little bit more, a little more. I would strongly, highly encourage you to be taking lots of snapshots, even throughout the day. This is after I added the drives. This is right before I created volumes or whatever. Because if all of a sudden you make a mistake or you get mixed up and I'm not sure where I am, how do I do that again? It's really, really easy to go back to that snapshot. It takes, like I said, a couple minutes to actually bring it down, take the snapshot, and bring it up, but it's so worthwhile to be able to do that as opposed to, okay, let me start all over again. It's good practice, but as you're working through it, sometimes it's nice just to keep up on it. Like I said, it's really easy to delete them, so I mean you don't have to keep them for a long time, but as you're working, just taking snapshots. I typically, this is just the examples, post volumes and post users. I actually typically do the opposite. I do pre. If I know I'm going to work on something, I usually call it pre-volumes. Okay, I'm going to work on volumes right now. I'm taking a snapshot. This is right before I started this kind of activity. And that way I know, gosh, I want to wipe all that stuff out I just did with volumes. Okay, let me go back to that pre-volume state. Does that make sense? Okay. I did mention in earlier classes of backing up. It's extremely important to back up. Backing up is just done by copying the directory that you're working with. This is the one I'm working with right now, this Open Enterprise Server directory. You do in fact need to have it not open in VMware Workstation, and doesn't mean running, but even open. So you need to close it out of VMware Workstation. It's kind of like having a file in Word. If you have file open, the document is there. While it's there, anywhere in VMware Workstation, it's going to have a bunch of lock files. And by closing it out, they're going to be gone. So nothing's going to be there. I take this directory and I copy it to someplace else. Another drive, obviously. Having a copy of the same drive, somewhat useful in case you completely destroy your virtual machine, but not very useful if you lose the drive or corrupt the drive. Bill lost a drive this week. Drives do crash. Drives do get lost. Things go bad. Questions so far? Okay, while I was going through it, I saw some people working. Did everybody get a snapshot? Did everybody take a snapshot? Okay, go ahead and create another snapshot. A second snapshot. And you can just leave it snapshot 2 or whatever you want to call it. Make up something. Everybody create a second one. Okay, revert to the first one. Or go to the first one. Everybody at their first one? Okay. Create another one. Create another snapshot. Take another snapshot. So it should look very, very similar to this. You won't have this extra one over here, but you should have a base image and then two branches off of your two extra snapshots, correct? You good with that? No? Yeah, right. You're not going to have the exact same ones, right? Okay, go back to your base image or your initial one. Go back to it. In fact, I'm going to go back to my base image. Well, actually, I'll delete that one. Back to your base image, and then delete the rest of your snapshots. Everybody good? Complicated? Nope, pretty easy. Good. Definitely use it. It's a great, great, great tool. Okay. I'm also going to I'm going to start this up, power on this virtual machine, because it's going to take a little while to boot up. While that's booting up, I'm going to do a file open, and I'm going to open up my Windows 7 Novell client machine. Now, I want to do the same thing here because we're going to be making some changes to your Windows 7 machine throughout the semester. We're adding clients, changing configurations. Boy, it took you a really long time to get that Windows 7 just where you wanted it, so it'd be a really good idea to take a snapshot of it. So go to VM, to have a snapshot, and call it base image, call it whatever you want to do. And once you do that, you can power on your virtual machine as well. Yes? They won't power on at all? We had that, didn't we? Excellent. Probably can't pick up on the mic, but one person had an issue with they could not start their virtual machine. Is it what's the error message? Cannot start. I'm sorry. Couldn't proceed without a log file. We had that once before, and by restarting the computer and then coming back in, it seemed to work. So we're going to try that right now and see if that works for her. I do get this message on my Windows 7. It says cannot connect to the virtual device floppy 0 because no device exists on my host. I don't have a floppy drive on my computer, on this computer. Do you want to try connect to this virtual device every time you put on your virtual machine? No, I'm good. I'm not going to be using a floppy. I'm not going to ever have a floppy, so it's really not going to be necessary. If you get that message, it doesn't matter. It's just going to pop up and say, hey, do you want to connect to it? Okay, with the log file? Okay. Anybody else with the log file? Oh, wonderful. We have 3 more people with a log file. This worked last week, right? You guys installed stuff last week and no, I don't know that. Drive Shield is not, a Smart Shield is not on right now? Is there a little icon for it? And it's red. Anybody else have a red Smart Shield? Raise your hand if you do. 3 people with a red Smart Shield. How did we do that? Oh well. Okay, let me mark that down. I'll take a look at it. see. A couple more things of how I work with my virtual machines, especially with Novell, is it does just sort of run in the background. You really don't need it. This is where we're working with it by the far majority. We're going to switch back and forth a couple times today just because we're going to see how they interact back and forth. There's this home tab up on top as well, which gives you create open virtual machines. This, it's a nice feeling tab. It doesn't do anything, so I usually close it. I like keeping things just as neat as possible. If you ever want to get that back, well, you go to tabs, and then you can go to your home tab. It's kind of tricky because there's no other place that's really mentioned, but if you really like that tab, you can go back to it by going to the home tab. Like I said, I typically close it. The other thing I like doing is running things full screen. By doing Control-Alt-Enter, it just makes the screen. I'm not confused then between my client computer and my desktop and my host, my virtual machine, or whatever. This bar tends to get in the way a little bit, though, as I'm working around. You can hide this by hitting the little pin up on top. It's still there, and you can still see a little gray bar up across the top. It's just not going to be in your way. If you need anything from the VMware Tools toolbar, you just sort of go up to the top. It's there. To switch between your virtual machines, it's in the upper right-hand corner. The little arrows up here on Windows 7. I click on it, brings me to Open Enterprise Server, and then I switch back to Windows 7. So it takes you back and forth between those. If you had 3 machines open, it's going to scroll between them. There's other ways of viewing that as well, but that tends to be the easiest. Okay, Ray's machine's up and running. No, not yet. Still launching. You're installing yours? You can always just copy it from your backup that you made last week. And that would be your second drive that I encourage you to get. And hey, I'm guilty too. So, okay. I do want to do one more thing, is basically seeing if we have connectivity with our network, and then we'll work with any issues. Thanks, Dale. If I want to make sure that I can actually connect to my server, everything should be set up right. If we did the install correct, our server has a static address, VMware Workstation, set up a NAT environment for us with the 192.168.230 network. Our Windows 7 computer is using DHCP. It should be getting it off the NAT configuration of VMware Workstation. So it should all be working. We're going to test to make sure it's going to work by going to the command prompt and pinging our server. Ping 192. Oh, got to do numlock. 192.168.230. And our server is .10. So I hit on there, and I do get a reply. If you don't, that's where we start troubleshooting. It could be the static address of your server. It could be that your Windows client isn't using network address translation. There could be all kinds of different things. So the idea, though, that this should work. Who's this working for right now? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're definitely on the right track. So, okay, once you get that far, I know a couple of people are catching up. We're just going to take a break right now. It's a little bit early, but this is a really good time to make sure everybody's machines are up and running and connected so we can move on with the rest of it.